Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about A Boy Named Charlie Brown from 1969. And this was a winner of my Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. And this movie was selected by a guy named Crystal. I noticed that A Boy Named Charlie Brown is kind of one of those movies where you either have seen it, have a very strong connection to it, or you're like, they made movies of the Peanuts before that new one, and there seems to be nobody in between. Some people have sort of heard of these, some people love them. I'm not exactly sure how that happened. It seemed like this film was fairly available, which is interesting. I had never seen this film before I reviewed it. I knew about them, but I hadn't seen them when I was a kid. I'm not sure why. That's a good question. I like the specials. I always kind of had a question of Peanuts as movies, because I was like, how would that work though? Like, is that going to work? Because I like the comic strip and stuff, but I was always confused. I'm not sure why I had those opinions, because both the two Peanuts movies that I have seen, which is the Peanuts movie and this, I've liked a lot, and I thought they're really good kid movies. I want to show both to my kids at some point, and they really win me over as someone who is like, is this gonna work? And then both times it definitely does, and they're both very memorable, and I'm surprised we don't talk about them more in the conversation that we do. A Boy Named Charlie Brown is just about Charlie Brown, who can't really succeed in anything, is totally down on himself to not be able to basically do anything. He can't fly a kite, he can't kick a football. He just feels like he's not very good at anything at all. He gets into a spelling bee, he wins at a spelling bee and gets put into a national spelling bee competition, and he goes mad trying to actually learn the dictionary because people actually have faith in him and how much that means to him. When I was watching this film, I was thinking of a kind of dual reaction I was having, because I was thinking, I do like this movie. This is like while I'm watching, I was thinking, I do like this movie. I'm confused why I don't see this on like lists of like movies to show your kids, or like in the discussion of that and stuff like that. So I was a little confused by that. And then and I thought, well, maybe because it's sort of sad, like it's about a kid who's sort of given up. You don't see a lot of movies like about kids who are just like, yeah, fuck existence, am I right? Or just go full on existentialism. You don't really see that at all. Like, that just doesn't happen. So it's like, maybe the attitude is different. At the same time, I very much relate to this movie, especially when I was a kid. As a kid who grew up with like a learning disability and would be constantly like screwing up seemingly everything. I don't know how to express some weeks would be like, wow, I am not good at like anything at all. This is awful, and no one is sugarcoating this for me whatsoever. And I do remember going into like these little depressions where I was like, I don't really want to hang out with my friends. I think I just want to walk around or read comics, or just accept that, maybe I'm not for people. Maybe I'm just not really great. And then if you brought it up to someone, they would just like double down on that, because kids are assholes and grown-ups are jerks. In general, if people find a weakness in you, they can poke at. Sadly, they will. There's nothing I don't know why people do that. I don't personally do that to people, but a lot of people think that's acceptable behavior. I don't really understand it, but they do. And so I get the whole Lucy plotline. I mean, Lucy, that whole thing is like a joke, but it's like true. There are people who go like, well, look at all the times you mess up and things like that. And so, yeah, I was a little surprised by how much I related to that, because I do remember like, and if I do something good and everyone like really likes you, especially when I was older, when I was a teenager, that he was obsessed with the spelling bee. I almost went through that myself, because I would look at those times. I remember like I never got good grades, and I went to like the special high school. I got great grades, and as soon as I think the first like semester or whenever you get the stupid report cards, I forget now. It doesn't matter to me. So at this point, but I remember getting like a great report card, and everyone was really happy. And I think I was happy for like an hour, and I was like, I think like everyone is happier with me now, but I didn't change. and that was depressing, but then I'd also try to fight to keep those grades, or if I had a painting that did well or a short story, I'd try to like regurgitate as much of that shit as I possibly could, not in a way that was like healthy or anything, just to like get that feeling back. I've never seen a kids movie who wanted to present that totally insecurity of like, oh man, maybe this is all I'm ever good at, because I suck at like everything ever and will never get those things back. And you feel like that as an adult too. And maybe that reality of this movie is something that people don't want to face on movie night with their families and stuff like that, which is a shame, because I think this film does it really, really well. I think it makes you look at those things and you go, oh, yeah, that's not as bad. I think I can get through this. But having someone to relate to, I think I've heard some quote at some point where it's like, it's sometimes better to ask the question than to give an answer. And I kind of feel like this movie mostly does the first one, but also does the second one, or mostly does the question and not the answer, in case you didn't, as I said it wrong or something. Yeah, it's a really moving, wonderful movie, directed by Bill Mendes, who did a lot of the specials. This film came out in 1969 and was a non-Disney animated film that made a lot of money. Right when animation was changing. This was about a couple years after Yellow Submarine. This is before Fritz the Cat and all that stuff. And clearly animation went into a more adult route in the 60s and 70s. This film comes out in 1969. Definitely shows you there's more box office potential for animation than just like Disney, basically, because that's all there was in America, especially. It's interesting this isn't part of that conversation. However, I did find on the Wikipedia there is a nice little quote from it just says a reporter from Associated Press, or an Associated Press story that said, the success of A Boy Named Charlie Brown broke the Disney monopoly or animated feature films that had existed since the 1937 release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The success of Peanuts started a trend, animation producer Fred Calvert told the AP, but I hope the industry is not misled into thinking animation is the only thing in it. But basically, that they were even saying like, oh hey, this is actually pretty unique, and it was. And if the box office to the 60s is very confusing, and I don't know where they get their sources or anything like that, but apparently this made about $12 billion, which, looking at the top 10s of those years, this is not listed in them, the ones I could find, but it would make it like 9 or 10 highest grossing film of the year. The 12 million might be over several years because film release was very different back then. I don't know where they got the 12 million from, but it shows you it was a sizable hit. It did fairly well. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song Score. That weird distinction I can't get into, but it didn't win because of the Beatles' Let It Be, which, to be honest, I totally agree with. But, it's not Let It Be good. This has got some good songs, but let's be real. A lot of people like this film. Vincent Canby gave it a good review and things like that. It was fairly well regarded, actually, at the time, even premiering at Radio City Music Hall. I like kind of the cheapness of the animation. The print I saw had a lot of was pretty dirty, or the version, I guess I shouldn't say the print, but I liked how rough around the edges it was. You don't see animated features sort of like this. I don't know if it was on purpose, since the Peanut stuff was so huge and everything. I would sort of think so, but it definitely tries to replicate the art of the comic. And it replicates Charles Schultz, and I think what you like about Peanuts things and what you like about Peanut shorts or strips or anything is their kind of hominess to them. You kind of get used to its relatability, but also they're kind of, I don't want to say Norman Rockwell-y, but just very Americana in terms of the comfort of suburbia. At the same time, you feel like you can relate to it. I do think this is a really good movie. I'm embarrassed I didn't see this until now, so thank you, Movie Review Vote. I kind of want to see the other ones, but it seems like most people don't really like those, so maybe I should stop while I'm ahead. But it's pretty good. I was surprised by it. It does have a looser structure. Sometimes there's the Charlie Brown plot, but other times let's just follow these characters because I don't know, we gotta kill time, I guess. The Schroeder one I really liked. I know it's I've often heard it compared to like, oh, we're just gonna do some Fantasia shit right here, which is, I totally get, but I actually thought it was really nice and well done. It was like an interesting sequence. It wasn't like two characters bump into each other or something. Like there's like a visual feast to watch, and I quite enjoyed that. Things with Snoopy are fine, not too much World War I flying in this or anything like that, but it has some special moments that are not part of the Charlie Brown thing, but it's mainly, it's called A Boy Named Charlie Brown. He is the titular character. I would recommend this to people. If you have not seen it and like the Peanuts, you should. And if you're a kid who grew up with this kind of thing, I have yet to see a film reflect it as well as this does. I think one of the cool things about the Charlie Brown specials, it shows the determination of kids, or the big ones. I haven't seen every one. I'm not Tariq. In fact, Tariq, I know Tariq did a better job reviewing this movie than I did. So if you have not seen Tunerific Tariq's review of A Boy Named Charlie Brown, you should just pause this and come back or something. It's very good. He did a much better job than me. Probably because he has like nostalgia for it, which I don't really have because it's the first time I saw it. I do think these films are sort of underappreciated, and I like its hominess, but I also love its relatability. I love what it's trying to kind of convey, but that just childhood kind of almost depression or something that not being able to accomplish anything really means. And maybe this is like going more into that with Charlie Brown and his intellect and things like that, but this is a very compelling film. I would say probably more compelling than it has any real right to be, but compelling in that kind of like simple slice of life kind of way. It only gets a little crazy with the spelling bee and maybe the Schroeder thing, but the rest of it feels like life in a way. It almost feels like they captured something you didn't think anyone could put in a bottle. It's just it has that vibe to it. It almost, I will say, feels more genuine than the newer version. Like this feels, obviously this was written by Charles Schultz, and you can feel it, unlike the newer one, which was I guess written by his kids' bank accounts or whatever. But this one is written by him, and you can tell the difference, I think, and how Charles Schultz cared about these characters, but also recognize like what he was putting us through, about what life would put all of us through, which I think, like, if there's anything also when I was watching this and reading about how people feel about it, I definitely feel like I get the appeal of Charles Schultz with the Peanuts more so than anything I've watched of it in this. Or maybe I just personally understood it and I feel like it is. But I would say if you're a kid who, grew up and it took you a while to understand things, you felt like you couldn't get anything right, this is a great movie to watch. But I think it's also good to show kids because sometimes things don't exactly work out, and maybe their example shouldn't just be, happiness all the time, basically, and everything works out. Just like having the idea that, life goes on, you go on, and you're going to keep going through these things, and you just sort of have to deal. And that might not be the greatest advice in the world, but it is what is going to happen, whether you want that advice or believe it or not. That is the deal. And I think like Charlie Brown is nostalgic, realistic, almost like too existential sometimes it feels like, but realistic in a way that feels almost as matter of fact as it is relatable, which I think is a very hard thing for a lot of stories to do. I think there's a reason this film has impacted the people who've seen it. I don't think I'm going to be forgetting this one for a little bit. I was into this. I think I want to make a tradition of watching this a little more. I think I get why this compels people so much, because if you've kind of lived through it or lived through something, I think there's a reason this film kind of sticks with you, because maybe it just wants to pat you on the back and say, hey, we're gonna move on. And I think that's kind of a real beautiful kind of thing. So if you've seen A Boy Named Charlie Brown and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Alright, and this was a winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. Thank you very much for watching.